welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Show with Ryan Greenberg and Nick Kalfas. All right, guys, we're back.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, the Everyday Millionaire Show. We're here with Brandon Turner. What's up, Brandon?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for
having us
coming.
here.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, you're at my house. Yes, this is
Thanks
great.
for letting us come
Yeah.
today.
Yes.
Well, you're like,
Appreciate
hey,
it.
let's do the podcast in the condo, and I'm like, I mean, we could, but this is the.
Well, I didn't want to
shit.
just
Yeah, this
invite
is
us to your
this is
house
awesome.
either, you know?
Well, I
So-
had all my equipment, and you guys showed up with way awesomer equipment than I have, so this worked out really well.
Yeah, had I known you had some stuff, I probably would have left some of this at home because we
Yeah,
had
it
to
was heavy.
We had to
Oh, I
pack it
bet.
amongst multiple
Yeah.
suitcases to get the weight limits right to fly here from the East Coast. So
Well, welcome to Hawaii. It's a
Yeah.
good place to be.
Thank
That
you.
was
awesome.
nice.
Thank you.
and thanks for hooking us up with the
Yeah,
condo. We
I'm
really appreciate
excited
that.
you guys could experience the condo.
We should
Yeah.
quickly maybe talk about that story, the condo story. So
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
talking about this before that charity auction. We knew that they had had put that out there to the world, and we were just, I thought, hypothetically speaking, about what would it be worth to go to hopefully get Brandon on our podcast. We're like growing the podcast.
What's
and
the number?
what's the and he was like, I think we both agreed like somewhere around 10K. We would be like both like, let's do it.
Dang,
And-
I should have charged 10K for this.
Yeah.
Well, we already paid.
We already paid. So we were all out. We came in for a couple minutes to the auction, and then we all left and went out to like the deck and had a couple drinks, and we're just now working with people. And Nick came out like an hour or two later. He's like, "Hey, like I won the week at Brandon's condo," and we're like, "Shut up!" Like we didn't even like. No, you didn't. And then we went through like the next several hours. We totally, there's 6 or so of us. We totally dismissed him, like 100%. Did not believe him until the luau, the yacht party at night.
Yep.
When he went up to you and was like, "Hey, we won the week." Oh no, before that, he pulled down his Amex app and was like, "No, look, like I did." And I'm like, "Wow, that's insane." Then he went up to you and I was like, "Wow, we believe you now."
That's
And-
awesome.
And here we are.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting charity.
Yeah,
and-
Yeah, it
Wow.
was good. We did a couple of those charity things. We Sam got some with that multifamily guy too.
Yeah.
Fair something. What's his name?
Ben. I mean, not Ferris.
No,
Not Ferris.
I don't know. He won a mastermind or something.
I was
or
gonna say
other.
Tim Ferris, but
No,
I don't think he
no,
was in the auction.
No, it wasn't him.
Oh, I'd pay 10 grand for Tim Ferris right now.
Yeah,
What would you pay for Tim Ferris? More than me? Probably more than me. That's
I don't
okay.
know.
How
We'd
much?
have to-
No,
we'd have to-
probably no, not more than you.
Oh man, Tim
Yeah.
Ferris.
I mean,
I'd pay
our
a lot.
audience though is like very much real
Real
estate,
estate, yeah.
based. So we talk about other businesses. We've had other businesses on the show, but like real estate's really what we do. And like we both had kind of cool stories, and that's why we got together and
Yeah.
started it. And now people listen to it, which is crazy.
Yeah, Alex is like a creative director for the new Better Life stuff, and then Matt, who's kind of COO of the thing right now. We've been chatting a lot lately about like when we launch the new podcast, like we want to launch big. Like we want people to be like, oh, this is like a Rogan style podcast, like that level, right? So I'm like, well, how would I launch with that level? And I thought, well, I'd have to have a massive guest. And so we started brainstorming, and like number one is Arnold
Joe
Schwarzenegger.
Rogan.
Actually, Joe Rogan is like number 2 or 3. Arnold Schwarzenegger number 1 because he was a real estate guy. He started out with real estate back in the 70s or whatever. So I think it would be cool to hear a story. He's never done anybody's podcast. So then we started asking, okay, what's that worth? What would I pay? And like in my head right now, my number, I don't even know if I publicly say it in case he hears that, but I'd probably pay 150 grand to sit down for an hour with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, and I started thinking there's like a
I'm
number.
gonna try to make that happen.
Yeah,
for you.
Thanks.
Talk about cool stories like that
Wouldn't
guy.
that be a legit?
That'd be awesome.
He's got
Yeah.
the most incredible story ever I've heard, and like
Yeah.
nobody knows it. Like he doesn't have a movie about him. I mean, like
I mean,
not
he
since
he
forever.
has a couple movies.
Okay, I know, but like, I mean, like, there's no like everybody just knows this is the thing. Like,
Yeah.
does he have a biography? If it is, it's
I
not a
don't
big
know.
one.
I mean, he became the governor. Like,
Yeah,
that's
like,
insane.
Yeah,
That's
he's got started as a real estate investor, governor, major actor. I mean,
And he
Yeah,
was a
bodybuilder,
bodybuilder.
yeah.
like professionally
yeah.
too, right? Didn't he
Yep.
win like competitions and
yeah,
stuff too?
and an
didn't he?
immigrant to start with to go through all that. Like, what
Right.
a story. So,
Yeah, that's-
150 grand.
Maybe our
Arnold.
stories aren't that cool, actually.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it,
Yeah,
now that I
let's
break
just-
down his
yeah,
story,
we're done. Yeah,
Yeah.
See you guys. Thanks
Yes.
for tuning in.
So so quickly, like a little bit about us. We started out listening to. Well, I definitely did. Starting out listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast.
I'm so sorry, man. I'm so
and
sorry.
I was
apologize.
I was a teacher and a boat captain. I was a charter boat captain
Oh,
in the
no way.
summertime. So I lived on these boats and basically worked for rich people on boats and drove them around with their friends so they can smoke cigars and whatever else. So I started listening to the show, and randomly there was a guy behind me on another boat that you would never know was wealthy. Like he wore ripped up fishing shirts. He had an old beat up boat, and he started seeing me working every day on the boat after I got back from chartering people, and he started cooking me dinner. One day told me that he sold, Wawa.
Yeah.
So one day he told me that he sold one of his restaurants that he owned to Wawa for $10 million and sold 30 rental properties when I was talking to him about my dream of owning rental properties. And he's like, oh, well, write a business plan and I'll help you out. So I did. I approached him and he lent me $500,000 at 6%, no points. And I went out and started buying real estate with it. And that's my story.
A great story.
Then I quit teaching and now I'm doing this full time. So, yeah.
So me, I started out, I have a landscaping business. Started out doing that, saved up a little bit of money, and I thought about the life cycle and how everyone does the same thing over and over again. I'm like, I need to find something to where when I'm sleeping, I'm making money. Thought about real estate investing, bought my first property in 2018, and now I have 73 units, and it's been a heck of a journey, learning experience for me. When I first started out, I didn't know what the term hard money was. That's how I was like, I'm like, how can I buy this? I've reached out to everyone around me. I'm like, how do I buy this house? They were like, you need a hard money lender. I'm like, what's hard money? And that's what it was, like step by step. I didn't focus 2 or 3 steps ahead. I just focused what was in front of me. It was getting the hard money and then finding the contractor, going through like countless amounts of contractors, and then figuring out how to get a tenant in the property, and then refinancing property. So each step, it was like I was just learning right before that step.
Yeah, if I could just like lean into what you just said there, because it's so good, right? This idea of like, you don't have to know 10 steps down the road, 5 steps down the road. It's like, what is the next thing? I would say the most important next step. Like, what is the very next step? So when I think of my own life right now, let's go to the Getting Arnold, right? That'd be a fun one. Getting Arnold Schwarzenegger. What's my most important next step? I'm like, well, I need to reach out to probably like an agent of his, right? Okay, well, no, what's the most important next step on that? Let's get more specific. I probably need to find out who the agent is. Okay, what's my most important next step on doing that? Maybe I just cold call or have my assistant cold call a whole bunch of agents in LA and see if somebody can track down who's his agent. Or maybe I post on my Instagram, right? That's probably a good start. I post on my Instagram story and say, hey, does anybody know I need to get in touch with Arnold Schwarzenegger or his team for a speech thing I need to hire him to do. Does anybody have any contact information? I got 300,000 followers. I bet you one of them will probably know, right? So in other words, my entire goal of getting Arnold Schwarzenegger really just comes down to one thing: posting on my Instagram. It takes less than 30 seconds. And I argue that almost everything in life, from real estate to business to family, is simply a series of like 1 minute or less tasks. You just do the thing real quick, and then you do the next.
So tell us when you're going to do that.
Okay, very good. And then get some tracking and accountability on it. And I'm going to do it today. I'm going to do that today.
Is that one of the tricks that we talked about on his new
we're going to do it today at lunch.
So, we're going to do it at lunch today. We're going to put it on my Instagram.
Yep.
Oh, I like it. Oh,
we're holding you accountable now.
That's it. That's the whole thing, right? Like, we all know, I say this all the time. Everybody is a genius and everybody is a moron, right? Like, all in our heads, right? If I were to say, hey, I'm really struggling with my weight right now, I just keep gaining weight. How do I lose weight? Every human could tell me an answer that is correct. Like, that's how smart we are. We know how to manipulate our bodies to lose weight. So you say, and I could tell myself, I need to like eat less calories. I need to work out more. Okay. So I'm going to go work out tomorrow morning. And then I'm going to hit the snooze button. And I'm going to go read a book. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. So I got this genius in me who knows exactly what to do to fix my life in every single area. Or I know how to at least get the information if I don't know it perfectly. And then I got this moron inside me that's like, no, I'd rather sleep, or I'd rather watch TV, or whatever.
I assume you've read Atomic Habits.
Yes.
So that's like the perfect. I'm just finishing it now for the first time, and I know I'm like way behind. I should have read it before because it has literally changed the way that I think about just a couple of things.
Yep.
And now I'm doing those things consistently, and it's a game changer. Just like changing the voice in your head to like one little word difference, and you can go ahead and go and do things.
Yeah,
like,
it's massive.
And for us, it's like, when things get really hard and you can't, like, you run multiple businesses, you know, it's like, it's stressful. So like breaking those things down into little tiny pockets or little tiny compartments it's really powerful, and it's helped me tremendously.
100%.
So we're going to do it where we ask you where you're at now.
Okay.
And then we're going to rewind to where you started.
Okay.
So right now,
do you have cool rewind sound effects? You should.
I can find something. I will find something.
That should be like a segment of your show where you're like we're gonna hit the rewind, and there's like a button on the table, and you're like, bam, and it like.
I like that.
Isn't that a cool idea?
That is cool.
I love
our
those
editor
gimmicky
might
things.
murder us for that, but yeah, sure.
I had a button here. I don't think I have it anymore. If I had the button, I'd bring it out. Darn.
Or like the DJ horn.
I do have the button right here. Check it out. It's It's literally a USB giant enter key.
Oh wow.
And what does it plug into? Just the enter key?
It's literally just the enter key from your computer. You can actually make it for whatever you want, but it's designed for the enter. So you put it on your table, and you're like, all right, time to rewind. Right? That's a funny idea.
That's a funny idea.
All right, well, moving on.
So right now, where are you at with your businesses? What kind of is your role in those businesses? And how many units do you have, that kind of thing? And what are you doing in your life to run your businesses?
Yeah. Good questions. All right, so where am I right now? So let's start with real estate. Real estate, I have a company called Open Door Capital. We're going to be changing the name. Actually, probably by the time the show comes out, it'll be called Better Life Capital, because there's another big billion-dollar company out there called Open Door, and I don't like being confused with them. So we're going to change the name to Better Life Capital. But anyway, so that is a commercial real estate company. We buy primarily multifamily, though we do have some self-storage, and we're increasing our self-storage operations, and a lot of the multifamily is in mobile home parks. We love that. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,500 units right now, 7,500 doors. About half of that, maybe 2/3 of that, is in the mobile home park space. The rest is apartments. We love buying in Texas and
How many
Florida.
states? That's what I was going to ask. How many states are you spread across?
I think it's 18. Now, normally that's a terrible idea. I'll preface it with this. It's not a good idea generally to buy real estate all over the country. Unless you have either a huge, large team, which is hard. I mean, huge team, right? Or you buy big, huge deals that are their own economy. Now, what I mean by that is like this. Like if I was going to go buy a bunch of single family houses, like I got to get really good at buying single family houses. And then I got to know each area that single family house is in. So I really got to study the market. So I might be Baltimore and be like, I'm going to be the expert at Baltimore. That's what people should do. When it comes to larger properties, it's more of checking the box on the market because the property itself is an economy. I mean, like I know that if I'm in an area that is growing in population, I know it's a large population, I know that the economy is strong, I know that it's a landlord-friendly area, and I buy a 100-unit apartment building there, I know it's probably going to be fine as long as I can run my business well in that market. So it shifts from like I need to master the market to the market has to meet these checked boxes and therefore I can buy it. Again, that's only with large properties.
Right, because you have your built-in property management,
contractors, maintenance, all that, right? So it's its own little business that's self-sustaining in a large way within these pockets. So as long as it fits there. So we buy all over the place. I just always tell people, don't, do what I say, not what I do. So we buy all over the place because of that. But when it comes to apartments, we really focus on Texas, mainly Houston, Dallas, and Austin.
Because of landlord laws?
Landlords in Texas are really good. Prices still make sense there. People are just moving there. That's probably the number one thing. People are moving to Texas like crazy. And I don't really see a slowdown anywhere. So we like Texas.
I did recently read an article about Austin being one of the places that they're thinking they're going to see the biggest decline in home values, just because I think it shot up like too fast.
Yes,
but it is one of those cities that is, I mean, Joe Rogan moved there. All the comedians now are moving there from, California.
Yep. And Austin is still cheaper than California. And so I like to look at that as kind of a baseline. In fact, I actually look at Europe as much more of a baseline. Europe and Australia as more of a baseline than where America is. America's been cheap real estate forever because the government just has propped it up for the last 100 years. But if you look at other countries, like their like rent compared to like purchase price is far different. Like they are much more renter nations where like Hawaii prices for rent were $3,000 for a studio apartment is pretty normal in a lot of areas of Europe and Australia. That's just very, very normal. Or America's, we've had $500 rents are just ridiculous. So I think we will grow.
We recently had this guy on from the UK, Jonathan J is his name, and he's like a speaker, and he was telling us the same thing, that basically Europe now is like, it is like a renter's place.
Yeah.
Like real estate investing actually doesn't even make sense there.
Yep.
Like you can't make it
just
work.
Doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're at, and we talk to people from all over the place. We go to these, conferences or whatever, and we see people buying these houses for like $500,000, and they're getting like $3,000 in rent, and we're buying houses for like $100,000, and we're getting $1,500 in rent. Yeah. And it's like the craziness of how are they making that work when you can do it somewhere else? And we're like hyper focused in one area. For me, I'm like right around Johns Hopkins Hospital, so we have people that are good people that need to live there, and I feel like that's the only way to do single family unless you are hiring multiple. Like Troy Kearns, he's another Instagram guy that we had on, and he has stuff in Mississippi and stuff in Kansas City, and he's driving from one place to another and flying, and he's got property managers here and this and that. Like, who's calling you Like when you have these multifamilies, who's calling you? Is it the property manager, or is there somebody that's in charge of like the syndication that kind of handles the day to day?
Yeah, I have a team. My whole team is roughly 100 people right now. About 2/3 of that is more like resident managers. So like we buy a mobile home park, we always take like the best resident there. Like this is a cool tip for mobile home parks. You drive around, look for the person who has the best house because they really take care of the house. They have pride of ownership and they don't like that everyone else doesn't. You make them your resident manager.
That's a good idea.
Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. So they become. I heard that from a podcast years ago, and it's been phenomenal. So you make them your resident manager. You give them a little bit of money, maybe some free rent, plus salaries, maybe whatever. And then they report up to regional managers who report up to more of the district or whatever, you manager or whatever. I think we're 3 layers deep at that point. They report to corporate, and then corporate's the one that hears about it. Now, if it's a real big problem, then it goes to my kind of like COO, whose name is Walker. He runs the whole operation. If it's above him, or if it's a really big problem, it goes to me. That is so rare.
So you're insulated.
I'm so insulated.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's nice.
Yeah, I only meet with the team. I meet with Walker, my COO, once a week, and I meet on an L10. We do EOS, so it's called an L10. It's like a one meeting once a week with the board, we call it. It's me, Brian Murray, who wrote Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate, Ryan Murdoch, who actually lives in the backyard back here. I got a house back there. We built like basically the three of us plus Walker just built Open Door Capital from the beginning, and so we're kind of the founders.
So how long did it take you to build that? We're going to talk about systems in a minute, but how long did it take you to build that system to where you're in the you're in the shadows and they're running everything for you?
Yeah, we've been doing it now for about 4 years, give or take. We've been building Open Door Capital. That said, when I built it different than I've ever done another company before. When I built a lot of companies and tried different things, and I tried to sell like wooden sunglasses and kites online one time, like, let's go fly a kite. And I've done a lot of stuff, but this time I was like, when I built it, I was like, I don't have time to build. I got a little girl at home, and I wanted to have more kids, and I wanted to surf. I live in Hawaii. I wanted to surf. I wanted to, not work all the time. So I asked the question, and it's kind of a Tim Ferriss style question. Tim Ferriss says in the 4 Hour Work Week, and this is where the name comes from, 4 Hour Work Week, is a line in that book where he says, I was going to say that.
So is it the pool?
No, it's the weed eater. I hope the landscapers don't show up right now. That'd be awesome. He says, if you had a gun to your head, or a doctor came to you and said, hey, you will die if you work more than 4 hours in a week, what would you do? How would you build your business? And I took that approach, and I'm like, well, what if I built Open Door Capital? Didn't even have a name for it at the time. What if I built a commercial real estate company, which is like a machine, right? Every great business is just a machine. It's little parts that move in and out and interact with each other to produce a result. That's what all business is. So I said, well, what if I built a machine from the outside in and not from the inside up? Everybody builds businesses from the inside up, meaning you start at the bottom, you're doing everything, you're assistant, janitor, CEO, everything. And then you start there at basically the bottom, and then you slowly infill below you. Right? You hire the assistant, and then you hire the next person. Then you slowly peel off what you do and train these people how to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great business model, but it can take 2, 5, 10, 20, 100 years.
And that, I feel like, too, you kind of have to have some financial backing, right?
To be able to build from the outside in.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Or I couldn't do that when we started our company. We had to do everything.
So yes and no. It either requires financial backing or giving up a whole lot of equity. I chose the equity. I actually never paid any salary at the beginning. I hired Ryan. So I built from the outside in and the top down. I hired a COO, which at the beginning was Ryan Murdoch. I said, you build it. And he went and hired a few people. And at the beginning, it was just partnership. Nobody got salary. Everyone just got pieces of equity. Now, at the end of the day, I own less than half of Open Door Capital. I'm a little less than 50% owner of the company. We expect to buy $10 billion. We have almost $1 billion now of real estate. We will buy $10 billion of real estate over the next 10 years. We will turn that into $15 billion over time. My investors will get 2/3 of that, maybe 3/4 of it, with the percentages. We'll end up with, maybe $1 billion or $1 billion in profit. Maybe $2 billion in profit.
Between three of you.
And there's a few more that have equity now, but basically I own a little less than half of that, which means if we made $2 billion in profit over the next 10, 15 years.
You're doing okay.
We're doing okay. But I gave away it cost me $1 billion because I didn't want to pay salaries at the beginning, right? And I have no regret, but it's just an interesting thing.
But you were able to build it quickly.
But I was able to build it quickly, and I don't think I would have done it without that. When you give people equity and you give people a say and you make them founders or co-founders or leaders, they will, like, the loyalty that it breeds is incredible.
Yeah, that's a good point. And they decide to work harder.
They
when
will
you
work
give
harder 'cause
equity.
It's the same as commission almost,
It
right?
is,
Like
yeah.
like my project managers, we were trying to pay salary and it didn't work. Like they
Yeah.
weren't good
Yep.
at that. And then we gave them commissions, heavy profits on the jobs that we're doing, and now it's running like a smooth machine because they are motivated.
Yeah.
They're working late if they need to because it's their money. That's what they're doing. So yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. We met somebody, we do an annual boys trip. This kind of turned into that boys
Yeah.
trip. Last year was in Costa Rica. And my business partner and I were talking to this guy and his wife, and he was a roofer in Florida. And he was just living in Costa Rica, and he owned a roofing company. We're like, now Tyler and I at the time are like working 14-hour days, doing our construction company or property management, buying houses, doing all this stuff. And he was like, oh, well, I just gave up 50% equity of the company, and now I live here at this hotel.
Yeah.
And this is where I live. This is my life. And he's like, I gave up half the money, but I literally live here.
Yeah, who cares?
And I don't do anything.
Yeah, who cares?
So we're like, that's yeah, it's on our list. Like we got to find some way to get out of that rat race and separate ourselves from the operations.
But then in those situations, when you give equity, how do you keep accountability on those people?
Yeah, a couple things. One, I mean, like we operate on the system EOS. I mentioned that earlier, right? It's from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. It's just a system, and when I say system, it's like a series of checklist processes, ways of doing business, ways of establishing goals. It's like, in fact, a lot of the Better Life Tribe, which you're in, the Better Life Tribe was really heavily influenced from how well EOS worked in our business. Because EOS starts with, okay, what's your vision for 7 to 10 years down the road? $10 billion of real estate owned. That's what we're going to do. Then what's your 3-year picture look like for that? What is your 1-year goal for your company? What are your quarterly, they call them rocks? What are your weekly actions that you have to do? And then you have a meeting every single week where you report on them. That structure makes it so that I'm not managing anybody. Walker's not managing anybody. Ryan's not managing anybody. People are managing themselves through a system. So if you show up and you're like, hey, last week I said I was going to make 12 calls to brokers and I made 1, like, you just look like an idiot. And like, then you have to say that in a meeting that I just screwed this up. And now you're going to do better next week. And you're going to say, okay, but I'm going to make up for it this week. So it's like self-regulating because of the system. So either you have to manage employees or you have to have a system manage employees, but employees have to be managed. It's just you choose how you want to do it. And I would much rather not have to yell at people. I'd rather have them feel stupid and then do a good job next time.
Yeah. So let's hit that reverse button. We're going to go back to where you started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about where you started in real estate. How'd you even get involved in
Or
real
even
estate?
maybe before real estate, do you have like traditional education that you were bound to do something
maybe like
else?
a first job.
Yeah.
too?
So, I have a doctorate in real estate finance. I'm just kidding. No, I don't. Let's see. My dad was a meat cutter. Mom did daycare. So very blue collar. My dad and mom just both retired, which is cool. Now they're retired. They're actually investors in Open Door Capital, which is cool. So like I send them cash flow every month. It's great. So I went to college. I'll go to the very beginning. The first even like inkling of real estate is in my first year of college. Well, second year of college. I met my wife the first year of college in this little tiny Bible school out in Colorado. And then she moved back home with her parents out in Western Washington. And I was like, well, I can't be without her. So I moved nearby and I brought 4 of my buddies with me. And we rented this 4-bedroom apartment, or three buddies and me. And we rented a 4-bedroom apartment. And then one by one, they all left. We're all like, we're going to split the cost. They all left. So I'm alone in this apartment. But as they would leave, they all left pretty quickly. But they didn't have a girl to hold them there like I did.
Yeah.
But I started renting out the room. I just put a sign up at the college that I was at, a little community college I was going to. I put up a sign just said, hey, room for rent. It was like $400. And I had like 20 people contact me, including a bunch of scammers and all this stuff. But I ended up getting a roommate that moved in, and then I had another one and another one. And then I was like, we just split it 4 ways basically. And then I thought, well, what if I rented out my room? And what if I just slept on the couch? So I did that. I literally slept on the couch. I rented my room up to a 4th one. I got to live for free. So like, this is before anything I knew about real estate or investing. Never assumed that was going to be my future, just going to college. But I was house hacking an apartment before that was even a thing. So,
And you were renting that apartment,
renting
right?
that apartment, yeah. I was renting it for $1,200 a month and charging each guy $400 or whatever it was, $300 or $400. And that was wild. But yeah, I lived on the couch for a year and in my car. I slept in my car actually most days because I had an overnight job. So I would work overnight and then I would drive to where my wife worked during the day. Like I got off work, I'd bring her to work. I'd sleep in my car until lunchtime. I would then have lunch with her. I'd wake up, have lunch with her, go back to sleep, and then wake up when she got off work. You know, so it was like my 8-hour sleep was her day job, and I did that for almost a year.
That's commitment.
That was commitment. I liked her. She was cute, and I married her eventually. But yeah, so I went from there to I bought a house because I got tired of living in a car. So I bought a house, and this was 07. And so like I had a friend who was like, you should just buy a house. And I'm like, I can never qualify. She's like, oh no, trust me, you can qualify. So I get on the phone with the bank and they're like, what's your, credit like? I'm like, never bought anything on credit. I have no credit score. And they're like, all right, well, what's your income? I'm like, I make like $8 an hour. They're like, okay, well, we're going to qualify you for $500,000. You're great. Right. This is the glory days of 07. We're just going to write down that you make $1 million a year. I'm like, oh, you can do that? They're like, yeah, no problem. It's called a no doc loan. So I get this cheap, crappy house. I knew to buy a cheap, crappy house, and I lived in it, rented out the bedrooms again to some buddies until my wife and I got married. Then she moved in, we kicked the buddies out, and still real estate wasn't really on my mind until I was sitting, actually of all places, I was sitting in church, just not paying attention whatsoever. Some random church I went to with a friend when I was visiting my parents, and I was just like, my mind was wandering, and I had the idea of like, I want to go to Europe. I want to go backpack Europe. That'd be cool. And I was like, well, I don't have any money. Like, I'm broke. I'm making like $8 an hour. I was like, how would I go to Europe? And then I thought, well, what if I sold my house? So I texted that agent. I'm like, what could I sell my house for today? It'd been like, a year. And she's like, yeah, you could probably get whatever, 140. And I bought it for like 80. And I'm like, oh shoot. Like after all the fees and everything and what I put into it, I'm like, I'd make like 25 grand. That's enough to give me like 5 years in Europe. I'm like 20, right? And anyway, so I ended up selling the house. But then I decided instead to use that money. I bought a ring, and then I bought a wedding, and I paid off my wife's car. And so we decided to be responsible grown-ups instead. And that's yeah.
So where did you move into after you sold the house?
Oh, good question. So that actually leads to the rental. So the first one, I got a taste of how real estate can climb. I got a taste of equity, right? And flipping. So then I was like, well, I'm going to flip houses. Forget law. I was going to go to law school. That's what I kind of was studying for it. I was like, forget law school. I'm going to instead go and flip houses. So I learned all about hard money. I was reading books on flipping. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm like, I'm going to buy rental property. So anyway, so I sell the house, around then. I decide I'm going to, flip houses, but I need a place to live. They're still giving mortgages at this point. Now, this is 08, so the world is crashing at this point, but they're still giving mortgages to some people. So I get a mortgage on a duplex. Didn't know anything about it other than the thought in my head. If I lived in I always
this
rent
is
out
the same
bedrooms.
area that
yeah,
you're
same
in?
area. Yeah, really crappy area of Hoquiam, Washington, which is where like Kurt Cobain's from. Like Nirvana started there. Really grungy, dirty city, or was. It's nice now, ish. And
yeah, that turned off. Just I don't know. You got to reset it or something, maybe. Sorry.
So, dirty, kind of grungy city, but, it's a little bit better now. So I'm in this area and I buy this duplex. It's 2 houses on one lot. It's like $80,000. I move into the back house. I fix up the front house for, I don't know, maybe $5,000 of just like credit cards. You mostly needed paint and carpet. And then I moved in a buddy. Which is a terrible idea. Never rent to friends, right? Especially, don't rent to friends. But I rented to a buddy. He comes and gives me rent. It was like $650 in cash. Don't take cash, please, everyone. But take the cash. And I realized my mortgage was like $600 or $620, and he just paid me $650. I'm like, I'm living for free again. And then I had the second realization was like, wait, if I moved again and rented out my house, I'd be making extra money. I didn't even know what to call it, cash flow at the time, right? I'd be making cash flow. So that's what I did. I just kept doing that. Buy duplexes for a few of them, triplex houses, and I would move, fix it up. And that's how it all started. Started flipping houses. You can't flip houses very well in 08, 09, so I started keeping them as rentals, and empire grew from there.
What was your education process like during that time? Was it just trial and error, or
tons of books? I mean, I read that first year when I got excited about real estate, I read 100 books from the library. Every single solitary book they had in the system on real estate, I read. What's great today, which is really fun, is a lot of the books I read then, I've now become friends with the authors in real life, which is just wild. Yeah. I'm like, these were like Ken McElroy.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, so full circle moment. Yeah. Like I remember I was on stage. I never met him before, but Ken McElroy, who's Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad. Yeah. Like it's like Robert's like real estate guy. He wrote the ABCs of real estate investing, which changed my life, got me into multifamily, and I got to introduce Ken on stage. I'd never met him before, so I had to tell that story of like I would not be here today if it weren't for the man I'm about to introduce. And
That's
then I got
awesome.
to interview him up, and I got a big old hug on stage. It was at the Tarl Yarber's event in Seattle.
Those will be great episodes for your new podcast.
I
get
know,
all those
right?
guys
Yeah,
on
to
there.
bring those guys on.
Yeah.
Like a guy named Mike Butler had wrote a book called Landlord and an Autopilot, which was like, that was our landlording Bible. Mike's awesome. Alan Corey wrote a book called $1 Million by 30. Now Alan and I are buddies. So it's wild. But that's how I educated myself, was just reading.
So you said the book, the ABCs of Real Estate, got you into multifamily?
Yeah.
Can you touch on that a little bit? Like, what about the book made you
Yeah,
get
you
into
know, ABCs of
multifamily?
Real Estate Investing is not a super like in-depth book. Like, you know, when I wrote, I don't know where it is, right here. Oh, up there, the Multifamily Millionaire, right? Like, I wanted to be I wrote 2 volumes. Well, me and Brian Murray wrote 2 volumes, and it's like 800 pages because I wanted to be like the definitive guide. That is not the ABCs of real estate investing. It's the ABCs of real estate investing. It's like here's the basics of how apartments work. But here's what I loved about it. When you buy a house, right, for let's call it $250,000 for a house, it's worth $250 because that house is worth $240, that one's worth $260, that one's worth $280, and that one's worth $200, and they kind of average them out and, you know, up and down based on what they have, and that house is worth what every house in the area is worth, right? That's how you value a house. But what ABCs of real estate investing taught me was that multifamily is not valued that way. It's valued by how much profit it makes. It's a figure off of what we call NOI, but basically means it's a percentage it's worth of what the profit that it brings every year is. So in other words, if you have a multifamily that makes $1 million a year and you can increase it to $1.1 million a year in profit, it's, you know, you can do that just by raising rent, and it's going to happen naturally, right? Just appreciation of natural rent happens, but then it dramatically increases the value of that property. You know, $100,000 lift could increase the property by $1 million to $2 million, maybe $3 million, just by getting an extra $100,000 a year. You know, in NOI, and it'd be from a combination of both increase in rents and decrease in expenses. And so once that thought, I was like, oh shoot, like this is like a game. Like you just buy big properties, make them make more money, which is just a matter of like
fixing something,
which I'm already good at.
And
then they magically are worth millions of dollars more. The leverage is insane. It's a true leverage. Like a small little lever moves a huge thing. And so I was like, well, shoot. And then, like, he makes this point in the book that multifamily is easier than single family. And I would argue all day long that is true. And what I mean by, like, the reason why is because there's more people involved. Because when you are doing single family, it's typically, unless you're volume, like you guys are probably doing a lot more volume, but it's typically a loner sport. Like, you're playing by yourself, like you're playing tennis.
The hardest part when you have, like, 4 houses.
Yeah, it's terrible, right?
That was our hardest time. It was, like, 4 or 5 houses because we were forced to try to do everything ourselves. I was trying to fix things that I had. We were both gym teachers, and we were trying to fix toilets. We were trying to, like, fix HVAC systems, and it was terrible. We had 2 HVAC systems go out our second year in real estate, and we were both making like $40,000 a year as teachers. And we had like, you know, $500 a month in cash flow from each of these places. We had no money. And we were like, oh, we owe $16,000 in HVAC systems.
I've been there.
And I was like, this is awful. And now it's way easier. You get 100 houses under management. You know, you're managing. You have people that are doing all those things.
It's a team sport. You're playing basketball, not
Nick's
tennis.
full-time job is basically managing his portfolio. It's a full-time job. With real estate, with multifamily real estate, you can just have those people do it for you.
It's my full-time job now, but it's not going to be at the end of the year.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to put so many systems in place, and it's going to be
Even I'll
nice.
push you on some idea. Another way of twisting to think about that. You can put a lot of systems in place, or you can hire one person to put systems in place. Like if you spent, instead of time building systems, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. Just another way of looking at it. You would spend a lot of time building all these systems that you know really well, or you could spend the same amount of time finding the perfect person to bring in, who is like, you know, personality wise, ability wise, everything wise. Like you put a ton of effort into finding that person, make them build the systems. Because if they build the systems, they'll take ownership of the systems. If you build the systems and make people run them, they're just going to do their job. Nothing wrong with it, but just another way. It's another option. There's 2 options.
That's a good way to look at it.
Or you got to get the AI system.
Or you get artificial intelligence to just take over the world.
Balancing water bills. You would never have to do that if the computer could just do it for you. And they can maybe call the tenants, the computer with a computer voice, like you must pay your water bill today.
Legit, that's all coming, right?
And it's like a
all
threat. They're like, you know, if you don't pay, we're going to evict
just shut your
internet off.
We have drones in the area which will be taking you out. Oh, geez, okay.
It might work.
Yeah.
It might work. So your life before real estate, and then you're getting into real estate, and now what's like your scaling moment? Like how did you get from this point to here? Is there something that happened?
There was. Yeah, I can pinpoint the exact moment that it changed to me. And it really was like kind of a several moments at once. But so all that time, like starting to build a portfolio, it took me from 20 when I bought the first property, 21, I was like just turning 21, all the way up to, let's call it 30. years old. That was just me and Heather building our real estate portfolio. I like to call that like phase one. Heather's my wife. So me and Heather building the real estate portfolio ourselves, that's phase one. But somewhere around 27 years old, I started the Bigger Pockets podcast alongside Josh Dorkin. So phase one and phase two kind of blend together. Phase two was my Bigger Pockets years. So I started phasing out of the day-to-day work with the real estate, and I started doing the Bigger Pockets stuff, which was good. I learned how to I learned real estate in phase one. I learned business in phase two, like how to grow an internet company, which was a lot of fun. And we had a great time building it, and it blew up and did awesome. And then phase three started, and that's where I was on stage at a conference, and I'm looking out to the audience, and it was all like syndicators who people do big apartment complexes. At the time, I had, I think, 33 units. That was it. A lot of people think that while I had the podcast, I had hundreds of units. No, I had 30. I had financial freedom at a $3,000 to $4,000 a month level. It wasn't a ton. I wasn't a massive investor.
That's one of our questions, actually. Yeah. So we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I was making $3-4 grand a month in cash flow, and then Josh offered to pay me a little something to come do the podcast and write blog posts for him. I was making more money then.
How did you guys link? He found you? You found him?
I started a little blog. It was called realestateinyour20s.com. I think it's still there. Okay. I haven't touched it in 12 years, but I started this little blog, 11 years. Anyway, started this blog, Real Estate in Your 20s. And in order to grow a blog, you go and guest post on other people's blogs. It was how the process was done. So I went and asked Josh if I could post on Bigger Pockets. And he's like, yeah, you can, come post once a week. And then we became Facebook friends. So I just hit him up with a cold email. He actually ignored me the first time. I had to follow back up 6 months later. I'm like, please let me write for your site. And he's like, oh yeah, of course. You want to write good quality articles for free for me? Why would he turn that down? Right. So I provided value. I helped Bigger Pockets. Josh and I became just knew who each other were. I followed him on Facebook because of that. And then he posted one day, he's looking for someone to just help him edit blog posts. He's like, I'm just overwhelmed. Because Josh was very much a build from the bottom up. There was no one else. It was just Josh, and he had a 1099 developer that worked on the tech side. That was it. And so Josh was like, he needed somebody to put underneath him to do the posting blog posts and editing them. That's what he was doing. So I came in and did that. And when I came into Bigger Pockets, it blew up. Not because of me. And I always make sure people understand, I did not blow Bigger Pockets up. It blew up because I was there. But you could have been there and it would have blown up. You could have been there because it blown up. Josh did everything right. He built everything right. But what Josh started doing was getting people to do the other work so he could focus on the big stuff, the visionary stuff, right? So I said this earlier about we're all geniuses. We all know the things we need to do our business. We just don't do them. So either you can suddenly overwhelm your lack of self-discipline and your busyness, and you can just power through and get stuff done, which is what most of us try to do, or you can just hire someone else, make them do all the little stuff. And then guess what? That's what they're good at because they're employees. That's what employees do. They do the little stuff, which allows an entrepreneur to grow a business. So if you're sitting there doing all the little stuff, you're not allowing yourself time to grow a business. So that's what Josh did. Hired me. I started doing all the little stuff that mattered. I wrote 100 blog posts for other people's websites over that time that pointed back to Bigger Pockets. That SEO juice blew Bigger Pockets up. It wasn't me. It was just having somebody doing the little boring tasks. So that was the Bigger Pockets years, and it just continued to go better and better and better and
when
better.
Did you quit your job? When was it the point where you had some units maybe, or you were on the show?
Yep. It was before Bigger Pockets started. Okay. I had 6 months of maybe a year of no job. It was 26 years old, maybe 27, somewhere in there is when I quit my job. I went from overnight job to Cold Stone Creamery for a while, another overnight job, and then I worked at a bank for a while, and that was terrible. Then I tried to be a contractor for a while, so I got my contracting license, built decks for some people, just trying to make money any way I could, but I was terrible at it. And the reason why I was terrible at it is because I didn't understand leadership. So I was treating that business the same way I treated every other thing, as an employee. So I got in there, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go build a deck. So I go build the deck, right? I didn't understand leadership and skills and all that around leadership. So yeah, so we just grew Bigger Pockets until, and I'm getting around to answering the question. I don't remember what it was, but I'll get there. Bigger Pockets. Oh yeah, I remember. What was the moment I went into the big deals, right? Yeah. So I had the 30-ish units, and then I was on stage at this conference, and everyone there had hundreds of units. I mean, big commercial syndicators, and I'm sitting there supposed to be giving the keynote to these people, and I was like, I don't deserve to be here. I really don't deserve to be here. I am here because I got a loud mouth and a big podcast because I got lucky. I want to deserve to be in this room. And so I left there going, I want to deserve to be here. Around the same time, I went to Nashville, visited a buddy who is a Grammy-winning music producer. And I was hanging out in the studio for a day. And I saw him and 5 other buddies that all worked for him were amazing people. All of them had Grammys. They were doing impactful work that made a difference on the world. They loved each other. They worked together. They had lunch together because they wanted to. They went out and hung out the weekends because they wanted to. And I was like, wait, that could be a thing. Like you could actually enjoy the people you work with, like, and have a good life.
Right.
Like, and work doesn't have to be sucky. My whole life has been like, quit your job, financial freedom, because work sucks. But I saw a different thing. Like, what if work was actually good? And so at the same time, I read a book called Vivid Vision from Cameron Herold, and it was like, lay out a vision for your life that's really detailed. Where do you want your business to go? So combining those three together, I wrote up it's right there on the wall, right there. The $50 million Surfers. Wow. How a small team of adventure seekers built a real estate empire, helped millions achieve financial freedom, and kept their humanity intact. It's a article written 3 years in the future, and I said we own $50 million of real estate while also having a life of surfing and fun and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that we did not buy in 3 years. We did not buy $50 million of real estate like I wanted. We bought $300 million of real estate in that time period.
Wow!
Because when you have a vision and then you line up the right people, and you have a system to manage those people, like you will blow your expectations out of the water. And so I started building Open Door Capital, and then last year, a year ago from right now, so December 2022, right? No, it's 2021 then. That's when I left Bigger Pockets full time to finish up, or to not finish, but to keep building Open Door Capital. And that's been the journey ever since. So that was kind of phase 3. So phase 1, real estate with my wife. Phase 2, Bigger Pockets. Phase 3 was Open Door Capital. And now kind of building phase 4 right now, which you're a part of and you know about, is like the Better Life Tribe, which is kind of the new thing. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell.
Yeah, I might have to get on that. I know you're...
Yeah,
Join, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Touch on that right now. What is the Better Life Tribe?
Yeah, man, it's a cult. I mean,
I asked if it was a cult,
it's
actually.
A cult. Yeah, it's very much a cult. No, I just have this, I put out a journal at Bigger Pockets called the Intention Journal, and it was based on a lot of research I did around goals and what makes people successful. And a lot of that research actually came from a guy named James Clear, who wrote a blog. This is long before Atomic Habits, right? So he just had a blog, and a lot of that information I learned came from him because he was really good at reading the really in-depth psychology stuff and then put it into blog posts. So I'd read tons of James Clear. So when he wrote Atomic Habits, I read it and I was like, okay, I read every single one of these in his blog because he just took blog posts essentially and made it a book. I mean, it's better, but so anyway, so I built the Intention Journal off that idea of like, let's lay out the habits in you life. Like this is the quote. This is the phrase that I think if everyone just like tattooed on their forehead in the reverse, they'd see it every morning and it would change their life. You get the results of what you repeatedly do. It's not like you are what you repeatedly do. Like some people say, no, you get the results of what you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly, I mean, I've lost like 10 pounds in the past month. Why? I gave up alcohol and chocolate. So I'm repeatedly, every day, the only difference in my life is I repeatedly don't eat chocolate and don't drink alcohol. And wow, I lost 10 pounds. Shocking, right? I'm not surprised at that. The other thing I say all the time is success is never a surprise. Like no one was ever shocked to get a 6-pack. No one was ever shocked to have a great marriage. Yeah. No one's surprised by any of that stuff. Success is never a surprise. It's always an outcome.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So like that whole idea of the Better Life Tribe is like, let's just lay out a vision for your life. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be when you're older? Like who do you want to be when you grow up, right? Not what do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Working backwards to say, okay, well, let's have some annual goals around that. But I hate annual goals, so we go to quarterly goals then. What's your quarterly goal? Okay, well, quarterly goals are great, but what are you going to do? What are the daily, weekly actions you got to do? Let's track it and let's get accountability. That's the whole Better Life Tribe. So we meet once a week within these little pods, and the pod, you show up and you say, hey, here's the 7 things I'm going to do. Did I do them or did I not do them? And that's it. And then we have education, we have people speak, we have live events, and
it's just nice to be around people like that.
Get around people who want to also do it. Because I know what I need to do. I know that I need to stretch 3 times a week. That is a given. I know I need to use my standing desk. This desk rises, but I rarely use it. But as long as if I tell somebody else I'm going to use my standing desk all week, and then they ask me if I did it, I will do it because I don't want to look like an idiot. Right. And so that's the whole thing. And then the coolest thing about all of that is, I mean, that tribe already has 1,000 members at it, $300 a month, right? That's ridiculous money. I'm going to go buy a private jet, all that stuff. And then I was super convicted. I heard Tim Tebow give a speech. Tim Tebow, the old football player, he talked about human trafficking, and I was just wrecked. And I was like, what? I don't need money. Like, I already have enough money. I'm going to be a billionaire of Open Door Capital someday, right? Like, what if I made the whole thing a charity thing that fought human trafficking? Gives money to organizations that fight human trafficking. So that's what we did. So the whole thing is a giant fundraiser, essentially. Yeah. That gives money to human. So every single person that's part of it is contributing to the lives of people.
I do have a couple of questions from a couple of the tribe members.
Please.
One is how to do large multifamily in a time of high inflation and a possible recession.
Yeah. So high inflation is wonderful for multifamily, right? Because multifamily is valued on the profit that it produces. So if inflation is causing rent to go up, which generally rent goes up with inflation, then you lock in a rate. So the first thing you do is you make sure you lock in debt. Don't do bridge debt right now. It's a bad idea. Bridge debt is like short term. It's almost like hard money. We used to do some bridge debt. As soon as the rates started going up, nope, no more bridge debt. And we refinanced out of whatever we could. So now, like, you get as long of a long-term debt as you can. You buy in areas that are continuing to grow in population, and especially if the population is outpacing the building, because that's just basic economics, right? If more and more people are moving to an area, and there's not enough housing for them, there's only two things that can happen. The government can institute rent control, which they're not going to do in Texas, or they might do it in Austin, but they're not going to institute. So the only other option is rents go up. That's it. So how do you do multifamily in a time of inflationary whatever? That's what you do. Now, a recession, if rents do go down or if they put nationwide rent control, yeah, you got to be worried about that for sure, which is why I also make sure everything we buy has a value add component to it. So if we buy it where rents are 800, they should be 1,000. We'll make them 1,000. Okay, fine. Well, if rents go back down again, we're back at 800, but at least we're not losing money. And then giving your investors, if you're going to raise capital, giving them a long-term outlook. So we now tell investors from here on out, we're not selling. Like our old deals will sell, but like going forward, every deal is like, no, we're not selling. We're going to hold it forever. We literally call it a generational wealth fund.
Awesome.
And so for that, just to touch on that,
Please.
If the rents do go down, right, and most commercials on 5-year refi terms, at that refi table, you could potentially have to come out of pocket big bucks.
Yes. And so the other thing that we're doing right now is we're doing way lower loan to value. So normally in the past we could do 80% all day long, right? Because then the rents, like let's say the property value was 100 million and then we got a loan for 80 million and we raised the 20 million from investors. Let's for easy math, right? The market could drop. Like if the market started dropping, let's say down to like now the property is only worth 80 million, which again would be crazy, but let's say it did, right? Well, now if we had an 80% loan on that, we could only get, whatever, call it 62 million in a loan. Now we'd have to come out of pocket with $18 million. That's crazy. I don't want to do that. So instead we're going in a deal saying, okay, the property's worth 100 million. We're going to raise 45 million from our investors and get a loan for 55 million. So we're raising way more capital. Now, what does that do? It lowers returns a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit because you're raising more money and we're not doing the debt, but it keeps us way more safe. So now if the market does tank, if that $100 million property goes to 80 and we can only refinance for 65, our old loan was only for 55. Who cares? And we fixed it up. It should be way better. So when you combine low LTV, a value add property, long-term debt in an area that's appreciating and growing with the right market dynamics where the more population than they're building, it is really hard to lose in that equation. And then if you manage well within a system. And that's why I think that multifamily still makes sense, but you just got to follow some of those rules.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the second question from someone is, what process and cash does it take to get your first multifamily deal?
I'll give you a couple answers because it could be multifamily is a duplex, right? Like technically that's multifamily. So you can
Let's say maybe 20 unit plus.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I will say this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do this, but I hate them. I hate 5 to 50 unit properties. Hate them, right? Because we talked about earlier, the economies of scale. You don't have in-house management. You don't have in-house maintenance. You got to find a property manager. It's just hard. I cut my teeth on a 24 unit. I made a lot of money on it. It was fine. It was hard. I had to manage everything myself. It was hard. There are ways to do it. And again, hard is good. Right? Hard is good in anything, any business. Whenever someone says, oh yeah, I don't like that, that sucks, that's an indication, like lean into it, right? I got a buddy who does well drilling. And I asked him how he got into that. He's like, well, when I was looking around for like a business to, kind of expand into and start, everyone just kept talking about how much that sucked. Well doing, it was a hard business. So he went for it because it means nobody else wants to do it, right? Money's in hard. And so I very much leaned into that. But that said, so I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I hate the 5 to 50 unit property size. But if you want to get into it, just learn how to analyze those deals really well. And when I say analyze a deal, I'm talking about not just like what we call I'll call it like mythical cash flow, which is like rent minus mortgage, minus a few expenses. Like it costs money. Like the HVAC will go out on your property. It is not a matter of if, it's when. It goes out every 10 years, let's call it. Well, if it's 10 grand every 10 years, that is $1,000 every single year you need to budget for. That is $100 a month almost, 88, whatever it is, dollar a month. So every single month, it's costing you $100 just to have for your HVAC. put that in your numbers. That's what I call pure cash flow. It's been purified. It's gone through the fire of tenants and use and all that, and it comes out the other side. That's pure. Learn how to analyze for pure cash flow. That's number one. And then two, learn how to find those opportunities and build a system around finding the opportunities. Whenever people say it, and you probably heard it too, like people will be like, hey, so my brother-in-law's cousin is selling a property and I want to buy it as an investment. I'm always like, nope, bad deal.
Yeah.
Because like the chance of that being a good deal is usually pretty rare, right? Because like if 1 out of 100 deals you look at is a good deal, what's the chance that your cousin's brother-in-law or whatever, brother's cousin-in-law, is cousin-in-law a word? Whatever. Like, what's the chance that that's going to be the good deal? It's probably not. So that's why it's more important to build the system around getting leads. And you guys do that obviously in your business. You have continual leads coming in on multifamily. You have a system for running the numbers. Every property has a number that makes it a good deal. Every property in the universe has a number that makes it a good deal. So you just learn to find that number and then you go after it. And if you build that system, the easiest part is the money on multifamily, especially if you are really good at finding good deals. The better deal you have, easier the financing is.
So when you're so far spread with all these different places, Texas, wherever, how do you build relationships with those brokers that are finding those deals, that are connected in those spaces? Do you have people in each one of these places that are connecting with those people, the brokers of those areas?
So yes and yes. With the mobile home parks, it's easier because mobile home park sales are not a regional or local thing, which is weird. They're typically more of a national thing. I don't know why. Just like, in other words, like there's like 3 brokers who do like 90% of all large mobile home park sales. There's like 3 of them, right? Guess what those 3 guys are? Our best friends.
Right.
Like they know us very well. We know them very well. We hang out with them. We send them gifts. We go on vacation. We are their friends. We built that relationship on purpose and deliberately because we know that they hold the keys to the kingdom. On the apartment side, though, it is a little different. It's a lot more regional, right? Like it's who you know, whatever. And there's a lot more brokers. There's 100 times more apartments than there are mobile home parks in the country, I'm sure, if not 1,000 times more. So yes, we have brokers. We have people on our team that live in the areas. We have people in Atlanta where we've bought some. We have people in Florida. It doesn't mean they're employees necessarily. It could be JV stuff. It could be whatever. We have people in Florida that their whole job is build a relationship with the key brokers. And then we have a lot of people in Texas. I mean, our partners, Disrupt Equity, who we've done most of our big apartment deals with lately, they own a huge team. Like they have a big team, a lot of properties, huge management company, all in Houston. They know all the top Houston brokers, all the top Dallas brokers. And the great thing about real estate brokers is that the 80-20 rule applies. It's 20% of the brokers have 80% of the listings. So, and you can even take that even more. 3 or 4% of the total brokers probably have half of all the listings of the entire area. So you don't have to know 50 brokers. You need to know about 3.
Yeah, that's the process of building those relationships and having that support. And those people, they don't even get paid until they get the deal done. So,
and then they have to trust you too. That's a huge piece. When you're starting, it's hard. They're not going to trust you. So the easiest thing you can do is just borrow credibility from somebody else. Partner. Like who cares? People are so uptight about partnering sometimes because they're like, well, I want the whole deal myself. Who cares? When you're getting in the multifamily, the best thing you can do is go get 1% of the GP on somebody else's deal, but you do 99% of the work. And then next time you get 5%. And then next time you maybe get 10%. And pretty soon you're getting 50 or 100% of $100 million deal because you built the credibility. And who cares when you look back on that first deal, you didn't make $100, you didn't make $1,000. Like who cares? It's all about building that reputation and getting that your foot in the door.
Awesome.
So financial freedom.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different definition and number, right? What is your definition and how has it changed from when you started, when you were saying $3,000, $4,000 a month to now, where you're making probably a little bit more than $3,000 a month?
No, I'm right about 3,000. I'm just kidding. So I like to define financial freedom in 3 levels. There's financial freedom level 1, level 2, and level 3. And they change throughout life a little bit, but level 1 is like I can pay my bills. That's what I hit at 26, 27. I bought that apartment complex, 24 unit. I got it for no money down, seller financing. It was awesome. It took a ton of work. That's why I got it for no money down. I spent a year of my life there every day. But anyway, I got this deal. It started making me $3,000 a month in profit. My other deals kind of added up together to about $3,000 to $4,000 a month. I still had to manage myself a little, mostly my wife helped out with a lot of it. And that's level 1, right? I can pay the bills. I don't have to have a job. But it's not really enough to like have a great life. So I call that like you can go on vacation because you don't have a job anymore. You can go fly on a jet. We'll call it the fly on a jet level 1. Level 2 is like, I'm absurdly wealthy here. Like I can buy a jet. Like there's fly on a jet level. Then level 2 is like, I'm going to buy it. I could buy a jet. So I'm like I'm probably at like level 2 right now, where I probably could buy a nice, jet if I really wanted one. It would probably be a stupid decision going into a recession, which is why I'm not going to buy one, right? And I live in Hawaii, and it'd be like a $50 million jet, and I'm not going to buy that. I ain't Grant Cardone. But that's like level 2. Then level 3 is like, I'm going to buy the jets, right? Like, so there's like ride in a jet, own a jet, buy the jets. That's like where you're like, ridiculous, maybe even billionaire level. So that's how I look at financial freedom. And I always just argue like you can't really get to level 2 or 3 unless you get level 1 first. So like we talked about earlier with like what's the most important next step on your journey? Like just hit that. What's that number? So the number for me is double your fixed bills. So mortgage, insurance, rent, whatever you pay, like all your fixed bills would be covered. I would double that and call that level 1 financial freedom. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
yeah, it does. It's hard to like quantify it. I think for me too, because I felt like when we were teaching, my partner and I were teaching, and I was like, this isn't enough money.
Yeah.
And then we started making more money when we bought the real estate, and now our multiple businesses are doing annual salaries in a month.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I don't have enough money.
Yep.
So now I'm like, I'm not financially free yet because I don't feel free.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yep.
And I don't know where. Is it a point for you? Did it get to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm good. Now I actually am really free.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's really hard, I think, to ever get to that point, right? Because we have income creep. When I was young, I lived in a car, right? When we like for a while, like I slept in a car, and when we traveled, I would stay in a Motel 6, no problem. Never even thought weird about that. Today, like I won't sleep in anything less than like a Marriott, right? Like, and now generally the first thing I search for is like a Four Seasons, right? And like now I think like I would not stay in a Motel 6 again, like right? Like our income, it happens to everybody. As you get more money, you upgrade your life. And you could just stop that and say, I'm going to go stay in a Motel 6. I'm going to drive an old car. I'm going to drive my 92 Honda again. I don't want to do that. So I think you resist lifestyle creep until you like get to that next level. And then you can up it as it goes, right? So I obviously live in Hawaii here, but what people don't know, I have a $3 million, $4 million house. I don't know what it's worth today. Somewhere between 3 and 4 probably here. I bought it for like 2. I'm house hacking. I literally get rent out of the back that pays over half my mortgage. I have another unit. Well, I have another unit downstairs that if I needed to at any point, I could rent out for $3,000 a month, and I'd be paying my entire mortgage here in Hawaii. Like, so like I'm still careful not to like go overspend. But no, I don't know if I don't call it fear. I don't know if like we'll call it fear for now. The fear of being broke again. I don't know if that'll ever go away for me. Yeah. Like for guys who are scrappy, like you and I and you, like, I mean,
it's hard to imagine that failure because now that you've like, I feel like, and I probably you feel the same way, you get that little bit of success and that's like the little bit of the drug that you need to get addicted to that success. And now I'm just like, well, where do I stop? Yeah. And it's like my wife and I are planning to have kids soon. And I'm like trying to figure out my business partner. Literally, we were stopped in Vegas for 24 hours and I told my friends that like, oh, I'm thinking about having kids. And Tyler says, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. We have a business to run. And it took our other friend Eddie to be like, Tyler, you guys are okay. Like he can go and have a kid. But it's scary. It's still scary to like take that next step when you don't like, I don't really know how to have money because you like work without it for so long. So making that shift, that mindset shift is tough.
Well, and I think a big piece of it too is knowing it's like the money's good, financial freedom's good, but it's not guaranteed for life anyway. I mean, like, you could own a bunch of rentals and say, yeah, I've got financial freedom, or you could have all your money in the stocks and get in the 4% thing or whatever the rule they call it. Great, the economy crashes, now you have to go back to work again. So like I think chasing financial freedom is almost the wrong goal, even though it's on the cover of half my books. It's like, get financial freedom, right? Because that's the carrot everybody wants. Yeah. But what I think is better is learning how to lead and build businesses. Because then no matter what happens, you can always just lead and build another business. Exactly. Right? So you could go, like, I feel like today, I could go and pick, I know this is going to sound like just arrogant, but I think I'm good at building and running businesses by putting other people in charge. So I could probably start almost any business. I go buy a roofing company and I'd probably do okay and make a good money and not have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week because I've got people that know how to run that. So like, that's, I think, the more valuable skill or the valuable goal to go after is not financial freedom, but financial literacy and business savviness.
Yeah.
So if you were to start over, where would you start and how would you do it?
You have nothing, no connections too. Yeah. That no Instagram with 300,000.
Yeah, that's sad.
So what do you have? What are you doing?
Yeah, I think. Do I have my abilities to inspire and speak?
Well,
'Cause that's such a
like the
powerful
question,
thing.
but that's like the question of
Yeah.
if I had the knowledge that I have now.
yeah,
Back
yeah.
then, you don't.
Yeah.
You have to just start over. Well, I guess you could. You have the knowledge.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
have the
because you read a
knowledge.
lot of books before you essentially got into it anyway. So you have
Yeah, I got some
knowledge
knowledge
Yeah.
of
about
like
real
how to do
estate.
real estate. Yeah, if I was going to start real estate over right away, I would pick a weird niche first of all. I think it's really hard today to make money in normal real estate. What I mean by that is like, I mean, obviously you guys are doing it and it's possible, and I'm doing it in a large scale, but I would pick a more obscure niche, like something that not everybody in the world is doing, maybe assisted living. I love assisted living because I think that there's a lot of old people in America that are between 50 and 70 years old today. They're going to be between 70 and 90 in 20 years. And they're going to need somewhere to live. And there's not a lot of options right now, but big crappy nursing homes. So I'm a big fan of that. I like, Wayne Gretzky says, the reason he was successful or whatever is because he didn't skate to where the puck is, but where the puck's going. I like the idea of like where the puck is going is a lot of old people with nowhere to live. Okay, so I'd pick assisted living. I would then go and work for an assisted living developer, probably for a year or two, and be their right-hand person, like be the most integral person there, learn everything I could, work every role possible. That's how I would start if I was going over again. But let's say that's a cheap answer, is go work for somebody else. So if I was going to actually build the real estate, I would then still get really, really good at it, learn exactly what I want to do, study people, like study other businesses, learn the numbers, the math really well. And then I would build out a simple framework of what I have to do every single week. So how am I getting leads on on the assisted living, or maybe it's Airbnb, or maybe it's whatever, some weird niche that's not a normal thing. Rent by the room, I think, is super good right now in a lot of markets, and it's going to be continuing to be good. Anyway, get really good at that niche, build the system of how you're going to get leads on it, build the system for how you're going to analyze those leads, build the system of how you're going to make the offers. And then I would just hold myself accountable to those because I joined the Better Life Tribe, and now I've got people holding me accountable to it.
The future Better Life Tribe when you're back
that
then.
didn't exist back then. Yes, that's what I do.
So, okay. So I think we got all of our questions out. I had basically one more kind of questions and one more question per se. What is one process or person that was the most integral part of you scaling, getting to the next level?
Yeah. Have you ever seen that video online? It's a great video. It's a TED Talk of a guy watching this viral video about a guy dancing at a music festival on the hillside. You ever seen this thing?
No.
So I don't know what music festival it is. Some huge music festival. There's hundreds of people on this hillside, just all the people like sitting and watching this band, and no one's moving. Everyone's just sitting there watching the band. And then one guy gets up and just starts dancing, and the video, the TED Talk that became famous, is commenting on this. Like, all right, here comes our fearless leader, and he's standing up and he's looking around. And he just starts to dance, and he starts to move, and he starts to dance, and he's dancing. He's just crazy dancing, and everyone's just laughing at him watching. Like, look at this guy just crazy dancing. And then a second guy stands up and starts dancing with him. And then it goes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 100, and then the whole hillside's dancing. And it's this great picture of when you start a new business, it's you alone dancing on a hillside, all by yourself. And it's scary, and people are laughing at you a little bit. But the most important character in that entire operation is the second guy. It's the second dancer, because one guy is crazy, two guys is like a movement, right? So it's that second guy believed in him. And so for me, that was in Open Door Capital. That was Ryan Murdoch. I wrote the vivid vision that I wrote out. That's on the wall right there. I wrote the vivid vision. I landed on an airplane. I landed back in Maui. I had it on my computer. I was like, this is amazing. I sat down an hour later on my front porch up here on my house, and Ryan, who lives next door, he came down, and I was like, I got to read this to you. And so I gave it to him, and I had him read it. And he looked up, and he said the words I'll never forget. He said, I want to be a part of that. That's the first thing he said. I want to be a part of that. And he was my second guy dancing. And we had so many problems and mistakes, and we screwed up a lot, but that was the person. It was the person who believed me and said, I want to be a part of that. And that's kind of good.
Awesome.
Right. To what I said to you earlier is like, find that person, find the second dancer, and it'll change your life.
Yeah.
I've been telling them, just let me manage all your properties under my property management company. We'll give you a little discount, and you could go do whatever you want to do, man.
Sure.
You can move to Maui here.
There you go.
Do what you want to do. All right, one more quick one. We do goals at the end usually. Like, what is one of your goals this year for your business, and one personal goal for yourself?
Yeah. real estate wise, I mean, we're going to try to buy $450 million of real estate this year for Open Door Capital. So that's a big one there. Personally wise, I set more, like, again, I'm not a big annual guy when it comes to goals unless it's for a company. So personally wise, Q1 right now that we're in right now, I'm working really hard to report every bit of food that I eat into an app that I have. It's called My Body Tutor. It's a company. I really like them. It's accountability. Like, I literally have every single day a guy looks at what I ate yesterday and then gives me feedback on it. Just having somebody read what I'm eating makes me eat healthier. So I have a number. I want to record it 65 times in Q1. Basically means 5 times a week. I need to record my food. And it has to be like 65 win days. Like, I won the day with food and I recorded it. And that's a big goal. Now, the reason I chose that is because I know, like, I didn't want to just do, I'm down 20 pounds. I don't know if I should be at 20 pounds. And what do I care if I'm at 20 pounds less? If I'm at 95 versus 110, it's irrelevant, right? What do I want? I want to eat healthy because I know that will benefit. Like, I'll get the weight that I'll get the weight I deserve and I should have if I eat right. I'll have the energy I deserve and should have and whatever if I eat right. I'll sleep better if I eat right. Everything will be better if I just eat right. So that's the thing I can track. That's the thing I can very specifically track. And so when setting goals, I always encourage people, like, think of, like, you can have a great, like, character goal or whatever, but what's the thing you can track that will give you the results of what you really want to be who you want to be?
Yeah, smart. They call it SMART goals, right?
Yeah.
Smart, specific, measurable, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brandon, really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Really appreciate it.
Looking
Thank you,
forward
guys.
to
Thank you so
hanging
much.
out and having a good day.
Appreciate it,
So,
guys.
have some lunch.
Best show ever.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.